I thought it was my husband's hand that touched me that night. Warm, familiar, heavy with the weight of years we'd shared. I thought it was his mouth brushing against my neck, his breath in my ear, the way he always came to bed half asleep and wordless. I thought it was his voice that whispered my name in the dark, low and soft like a secret meant only for me. But when I opened my eyes, it wasn't him. It was her. And the worst part? I didn't stop her. I could have. I should have. But I didn't. And that moment, those few seconds of frozen silence and heat and disbelief, changed everything. It all started a few days earlier when David, my husband, left town to visit his brother. Just a short trip, a family errand. Nothing unusual. He kissed my cheek, promised a call, and drove off without looking back. It was supposed to be uneventful, routine, a handful of quiet days alone in the house, the kind of peace I secretly craved. And Ava, his daughter from a previous marriage, would keep to herself as she always did. That was the unspoken agreement. She stayed tucked away in her room, behind her closed door, headphones in, eyes on her phone, walls up. We barely spoke unless we had to. She was polite, quiet, distant. I never saw her as a threat. I barely saw her at all. But something shifted the moment David left. Ava started appearing more, lingering in the kitchen a bit longer, brushing past me in the hallway with a look I couldn't quite place. Not hostile, not exactly friendly either. Curious, maybe intent. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was reading too much into small things, that the flicker in her eyes meant nothing, that the way she said goodnight, slow, deliberate, wasn't laced with something more. I told myself all of that right up until the night I felt her hands on me in the dark. She was always quiet, distant, one of those people who move through the world without ever quite touching it. Ava rarely spoke unless spoken to, never raised her voice, never slammed a door. She stayed behind her walls, her room, her headphones, her thick curtain of indifference. She never caused trouble. Our house ran on routine. Mornings were quiet. Evenings were quieter. Calm, still, sometimes painfully uneventful, but was safe, predictable. The kind of life that lulls you into thinking nothing could ever go wrong. At least, that's what I used to believe. But something felt different this time. The moment David's car pulled out of the driveway, I stayed at the door longer than I needed to. I stood there, fingers curled tight around the knob, watching the glow of his taillights shrink into the distance. I squinted into the golden spill of early evening, half aware of the way the light bent through the trees, as if holding on to him for one last second. And then he was gone, just like that. The street grew still. No footsteps, no passing cars, no birdsong. Only the wind brushing against the glass, soft and eerie. And the house, our house, sank into silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that makes you exhale. The silence felt thicker somehow. More aware, like the walls were listening, like the air had shifted around me, just slightly, just enough to set something off inside my chest. I didn't move. My feet stayed planted. My hand clutched the doorknob as if letting go might trigger something. A noise, a presence, a change. I stared at the hallway behind me, my skin prickling, convinced I might see someone standing there. A shadow, a figure, something I couldn't name. But nothing came. Still, I turned slowly, cautiously, as if I were trying not to wake something. The door clicked shut behind me, and the sound echoed down the hallway. Too loud for such a small action. I locked it, hesitated, then checked it again. Then it was just me and the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the living room clock, the creak of the wood under my feet, and my heartbeat steady but uncertain. I told myself it was fine, just nerves, just the house adjusting without David in it. But deep down, I already knew something was off, and it wasn't the house. Ava didn't come downstairs, not right away, and I didn't expect her to. She was 21, fiercely private, always wrapped in her own little world behind a closed door. She wasn't cold exactly, but distant, reserved. I'd known her for 3 years, but she still felt like a stranger in some ways. David said she was just independent. I thought she was a riddle, I'd stop trying to solve. But there were moments, rare and brief, where I'd catch her watching me. Not like a daughter watches a stepmother, like something else. Her gaze would linger just a second too long. Not distracted, intentional, focused like she was memorizing me. And the instant I noticed, she'd glance away like nothing happened. But those glances always stuck with me longer than they should have. And though I never brought it up, not even to myself, I started to wonder what I was seeing or avoiding. Around 7, she finally came downstairs. I was setting out some reheated pasta and an old half-drunk bottle of wine, keeping things casual. She didn't say much, just gave a small nod, slid into the chair across from me, and started eating. I tried to fill the silence with something harmless, something about the forecast calling for rain. She nodded again, but didn't lift her eyes from the plate. Yet, there was something in the way she sat, shoulders less tense, presence more grounded, that made it feel like she wasn't drifting through dinner this time, like she was really there. And somehow, that unsettled me more. I kept my eyes on my plate, pretending not to notice, but I could feel her watching me. Not a glance, not a flicker. No, it was steady, intense, like she was studying me. And I don't know why, but I didn't say anything. I let it happen. Maybe I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe I didn't want to admit the way it made my skin prickle. After dinner, I rinsed the dishes while Ava quietly disappeared back into her room. I didn't see her again for the rest of the evening. I assumed she was gaming, scrolling, doing whatever 21-year-olds did when they were in the mood to talk. I poured myself another glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and tried to distract myself with a movie I'd seen too many times to care about. But I couldn't shake her gaze. How present I had felt. It lingered longer than the silence. This was the night everything began to shift. Around midnight, I headed to bed. The house was quiet again, too quiet, almost sterile. David's side of the bed was still untouched. The pillow fluffed, the covers smoothed down like he might walk back in any moment. I pulled back my side and slid beneath the sheets, wrapping them around me like a cocoon. For the first time in weeks, I actually felt tired enough to sleep without tossing. I must have been out for a while, because when I woke up, the clock on the nightstand said a little past 2 a.m. But it wasn't a sound that woke me. It was a feeling, that eerie sense of being watched, of not being alone. My eyes stayed shut as I strained to hear something, anything, but the air around me felt too still, too aware. I told myself it was the wine or the emptiness, that my mind was playing tricks again. Then I heard it, soft footsteps, bare feet brushing lightly against the hardwood floor. Slow, measured, from the hallway, moving closer. My body tensed. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just laid there pretending to sleep, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. The footsteps stopped just outside the bedroom. I knew that floorboard, the one just left the threshold, always creaked when someone stepped there, and then the door opened. The room stayed cloaked in shadow. No hallway light, no voice, just the faintest sound of someone entering. Each step careful, deliberate. The door clicked softly shut again. I gripped the blanket tighter. Then the mattress shifted, pressure slow and steady as someone crawled onto the bed beside me. I didn't turn. I didn't speak. I should have. But some part of me already knew. Or maybe I was too afraid to find out I was wrong. Or worse, that I wasn't. A warm hand touched my arm. Soft, familiar, the way David used to when he didn't want to wake me fully, but still needed me close. Fingers glided down, feather light against my skin. David, I whispered, the name sticking in my throat, barely audible. No answer, only a breath, close and warm, hovering near my ear. Then a kiss, soft, cautious, right at the curve of my jaw. My eyes flew open. Moonlight streamed to the window in a thin silver blade, just enough to carve out the figure beside me. Her face was right there, too close, and it wasn't David. It was Ava. She didn't flinch, didn't look startled or guilty. She just stared at me, calm, composed, like this was a mistake. Her breath stayed steady. Mine didn't. I sat up halfway, my breath caught between a whisper and a warning, but no words came out. I just stared at her, at the impossible, terrifying truth of it. She leaned back slowly, her eyes locked on mine. Then, without saying a single word, she stood, turned, and walked out of the room like nothing had happened. And I didn't stop her. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just stared at the empty doorway, because somewhere deep down, I knew that moment wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The morning came far too fast. I couldn't remember falling asleep. I just remembered lying there, stiff and sleepless, staring at the ceiling while her face refused to leave my mind. Every time I blinked, I saw it again, Ava's calm, haunting expression in the dark. Her lips brushed mine with quiet intention, that eerie stillness in her eyes. She had kissed me like it meant something, like she knew exactly what she was doing. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that it had to be a dream. Something twisted my subconscious had pieced together in the middle of the night. That's what I clung to while I splashed cold water over my face in the bathroom mirror, hoping to shock it out of me. But the feeling was still there. The warmth of her breath, the weight of her body on the mattress, the silence that stretched between us. No, it wasn't a dream. When I finally made it to the kitchen, Ava was already there. She stood at the counter in a gray hoodie and loose sweats, pouring cereal like it was just another day. She glanced up as I walked in, met my eye for a second, then offered a casual, maybe too casual, morning. Morning, I said back, but my voice felt tight, forced. I waited for something, an explanation, an apology, even a smirk. But she just sat down and started eating, calm as ever. No tension in her shoulders, no flicker of discomfort, just that same unreadable stillness. If I hadn't been there, hadn't felt her in my bed, I would have thought everything was normal. But nothing was. As I moved toward the coffee maker, I found myself watching her. The way she sat with one leg tucked beneath her, the subtle smirk playing on her lips, not quite playful, not quite innocent. Her gaze stayed low, fixed on her bowl, like she didn't want to push, but wanted me to notice that she wasn't avoiding it either. "Did you sleep all right?" I asked, try to sound as neutral as possible. She nodded. "Yeah, you?" I hesitated. "Fine." Her spoon clinked against the side of the bowl. I could have sworn there was the faintest twitch of amusement at the corner of her mouth, like she knew, like she was daring me to say it, like she was proud of how much space she was taking up in my head, without saying a word. The rest of the day was a blur. I tried to focus, tried to work, tried to lose myself in something, anything, but I couldn't, not really. Every time I passed by her room, I felt my shoulders tense. Every time I heard her footsteps above me, I caught myself holding my breath. And the worst part, I kept remembering the feel of her hand, the kiss, the way she moved like she already knew how I'd react, and how right she had been. That evening, I made dinner again. Ava joined without being asked. She even helped set the table. David and I always joked that she never lifted a finger unless someone begged her. So why now? She sat directly across from me, just like the night before. Our eyes met more than once. And every time, it was me who looked away first. There was something in the way she watched me, measured, amused, like she was waiting for me to break the silence. But I didn't. I couldn't. It wasn't until I was washing the dishes that I noticed it. Her voice. She said something offhandedly from the table, something meaningless, but the sound of it stopped me cold. The rhythm, the soft lilt near the end of the sentence. It was almost exactly how David sounded. The same tone, the same cadence. It made the hairs on my arms rise. Was she doing it on purpose? I dried my hands, turned and faced her. "Ava, can we talk?" She didn't flinch. "Sure. About what?" "You know what?" She tilted her head slightly, almost teasing. "No, I don't think I do." I took a step closer. "Last night." She leaned back in the chair, folding her arms casually across her chest. "What about it?" I searched her face for anything, shame, fear, even regret. But there was nothing, just that same cool amusement. "You came into my room." Her eyes sparkled faintly. "Did I?" My throat tightened. "Don't play games with me." "I'm not." She stood up, slow and smooth, walking toward the doorway. Maybe you just had a dream. And then just like that, she left the room. I stood frozen, fists clenched, heat burning under my skin. Not just at her, but at myself, because she was right. I hadn't stopped her. That night, I locked my bedroom door. It felt childish, but I needed that barrier. I lay in the dark, trying not to think about her voice, her touch, the silence she left behind. Around midnight, I heard it. A faint tap, then a soft click. I bolted upright, heart racing, but the door was still shut, still locked. Cautiously, I crept to it, pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. I relocked it anyway. But when I turned back toward the bed, I froze. There at the foot of the mattress was one of my silk robes, pale pink, the one I'd packed in David's suitcase. I hadn't put it there. It sat still, deliberate. A message. I lay in bed for what felt like hours, heart pounding at every creak. And then I heard it. The door unlocking, slow, intentional, the kind that says, "I know you're awake." I didn't move, just stare at the ceiling as the air shifted. She stepped in, and then her voice, soft, slow, familiar. "Baby," she whispered. "Are you still awake?" It was his voice. David's. Every cadence, every note. But it wasn't him. It was Ava. She moved closer, floorboards creaking under bare feet. The bed dipped beside me. Her hand brushed my arm. "You miss this, don't you?" she whispered. "Miss how he touched you. Miss how he made you feel." I shut my eyes. Stop. But it came out too soft, too breathless. Not a command, barely even a protest. Her hand slid higher, slow and sure, over my shoulder. Her fingers trailed along my neck, down to my chest. Light, deliberate, purposeful. The way David touched me when he didn't want words, just closeness. "You don't have to pretend," she murmured, her breath warm against my jaw. "You don't have to be lonely." I turned my head slightly. "This isn't you." "No," she whispered. "It's him. Isn't that what you want?" My stomach nodded. My breath stuttered. I could have stopped her then, could have shoved her away, could have said her name loud enough to make it all real. But I didn't, because in the dark, her touch was his, her voice his, and it felt like him. My mind screamed, "Get up." My body whispered, "Just one more second." She leaned closer, her lips brushing my ear. "I know how he made you feel. I've seen it, heard it. I know the sounds you make when you think no one's listening." "Ava," I started, but her lips pressed against my neck, and the word unraveled before I could finish it. "I can be him," she whispered again, slower now. "Let me be him just for tonight." The words sliced through me, cut past everything I buried, everything I locked away, the ache I never spoke of, the emptiness I never confessed. And the worst part? She saw it, she understood it, and she used it. She climbed higher onto the bed, straddling me. The robe, the one that wasn't supposed to be here, slid across my thighs as she moved. I felt the silk against my skin. I could smell the faint trace of my perfume, clinging to her. Her hands slipped beneath the blanket, firm, steady, knowing. They moved along my sides, tracing my ribs, not rushed, not rough, just slow, confident, seductive. "Don't fight me," she whispered. "You don't want to." And I didn't answer. I couldn't. My head was spinning, the room blurring into something I didn't recognize. Half memory, half desire, both too real to escape. And then she kissed me. Not hard, not fast, but exactly the way David used to. Slow, full, knowing. And I kissed her back. I don't know when the shift happened, when resistance melted into surrender, when guilt blurred into hunger. I only know that somewhere in the dark, I stopped saying no and started saying nothing at all. Her breath hitched when my hands found her waist. Her mouth moved to my neck. And just for a moment, a single heartbeat of denial, I let myself believe it was him. I closed my eyes, tried to forget, tried to pretend this was a dream, some twisted echo of loneliness and longing. But then she leaned in, her nose brushing mine, and whispered his name in my voice. "David." And I said it too. "David." Ava didn't stop. If anything, She moved with more intention, more clarity. Her eyes found mine in the dark, and what I saw in them didn't belong to David. It was something else, something darker, satisfied, triumphant. She didn't stop pretending, and I didn't stop her. It unfolded slowly, painfully, a theater of shadows and whispers and breathless gasps. Her body moved like his. Her voice mimicked his sighs, and I let it, every second of it, because she wasn't forcing me. I was letting it happen. And when it was over, she lay beside me, her chest rising and falling, her warmth too close, too real. Neither of us said anything. Not at first. There was too much between us now, too much that couldn't be taken back. I couldn't look at her, couldn't speak. I just stared up at the ceiling, heart pounding, breath shallow, skin flushed with heat and shame. Then finally, her voice broke the silence. Calm, cold, like a blade sliding under skin. Now you know who I really am, she said. I turned my head slowly. And you didn't stop me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her words settled over me like a second skin. Tight, suffocating, impossible to peel off. I turned back to the ceiling, trying to believe that if I stayed perfectly still, the night might vanish, that it might unhappen. But the silence didn't fade. It thickened, wrapped itself around my throat like it meant to stay. Ava didn't move. She lay beside me, breathing steady, like she hadn't just crossed every line. My heart wouldn't slow. My skin still remembered her, her hands, her voice, the way she looked at me like I already belonged to her. And maybe I did. Eventually, she slipped away without a word. She didn't need to. The damage was done. Morning came, soft light spilling through the blinds. But nothing felt peaceful. The bed was too warm. The robe was still on the floor. I didn't touch it. The memory clung to me. Her voice, her body, her lie. I should have stopped her. I didn't. I dragged myself out of bed, pulled on the nearest shirt, and went straight to the shower. The water was too hot. It turned my skin red, but I didn't care. I let it burn, hoping it would cleanse something that had already rooted too deep inside me. Ava wasn't in the kitchen that morning. She wasn't in the living room. She wasn't anywhere I could see. And somehow, that was worse than if she had been sitting there smirking, because the silence she left behind wasn't empty. It was a message, one I understood all too well. I avoided her all day. I didn't go near her room, didn't speak, didn't even breathe too loudly. I needed space, distance, but she was everywhere. Her presence soaked into the walls. Her weight lingered in every shadow. Every time I turned a corner, I braced to see her. Every floor creak made my breath catch. Every silence hummed with her breath. When David called, I flinched at the sound of her voice. She said she was coming home early. Something about her sister canceling dinner plans. I told her it was fine, that everything was quiet here. She laughed and asked if Ava was still being a ghost. I said she was fine. I didn't know what else to say. By the time David walked through the door, the house felt smaller than it ever had. He swept in with his usual warmth, kissed my cheek, dropped his bag, kicked off his shoes. He filled the room like she always did, comforting, familiar, but I couldn't look at him. Not the same way. When he called out for Ava, I held my breath. And Ava came downstairs like nothing had happened. Hoodie, slippers, calm. She hugged her dad, asked about the trip, even made him laugh. And when David wasn't looking, Ava glanced at me. One of those long, slow stares that said everything without saying a word. You remember, I didn't say a thing. Dinner that night was too normal. The kind of normal that felt like it was wearing a mask. We sat together like a family, talking about nothing, traffic, groceries. His sister's new dog. Ava barely spoke, but her silence wasn't the kind I used to know. It felt charged, waiting. I could barely eat. Every time I looked up, I caught the way her fingers toyed with a fork, slow and intentional. The way her eyes tracked David's lips when he spoke. The faintest smile she gave when David touched my hand across the table. And then it happened. Small, almost nothing. A silence. A beat too long. David looked between us, eyes narrowing slightly. Playful but curious. "What's going on between you two?" he asked. I froze, fork halfway in my mouth. Ava smiled. I shook my head quickly. "Nothing." "Why?" David shrugged, sipping his wine. "You're both acting weird." Ava let out a quiet laugh. "Maybe we're just bonding." David laughed with her, brushing it off, but there was a flicker in her eyes. A crack. Brief, but there. I stood up first after dinner, saying I had work to catch up on. I didn't. I just needed air. Space. I had to get out of that room before something inside me splintered, but I didn't get far. As I rounded the corner into the hallway, Ava was already there, leaning against the wall like she'd been waiting. I tried to move past her, but she stepped in, too close. "You okay?" she asked, her voice low. I didn't answer. She leaned in, her lips brushing my ear. "I can be him again tonight, if you want." My stomach twisted. "Don't." She tilted her head. "Don't what?" "You know exactly what." She smiled again, soft, intimate, dangerous. "You didn't say that last night." I pushed past her, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. By the time I made it to the study, my hands were shaking. I shut the door, locked it, sat on the couch, gasping for air. What was happening? Who the hell was she? I should have said no. I should have told her to stop. But the worst part, I hadn't said anything at all, and I knew that wasn't the end. David fell asleep early that night, curled under blankets beside me, like everything was the same, like nothing had changed. His breathing was slow, even. His hand rested lightly on my side, unaware of the storm just beneath my skin. I watched him sleep far too long, my chest tight with a guilt I couldn't name, my mind drowning in the weight of what had already happened and what I feared might happen again. Eventually, I slipped out from under the covers. I didn't want to touch David. I didn't want him to wake up and look at me with those kind, trusting eyes. I couldn't take that. I moved through the house in silence, every step careful and slow, until I found myself on the couch, alone in the dark. The only light came from a dull street lamp spilling faint yellow through the blinds. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't check my phone. I just sat there, elbows on my knees, head in my hands, thinking about the disaster I'd let happen. I knew she would come. I don't know how. I just felt it before I heard anything. She didn't knock, didn't call my name. She just appeared in the doorway like a shadow, barefoot, calm, eyes unreadable as always. But this time, there was no performance, no borrowed voice, no silk robe. She wasn't pretending to be David anymore. She was just Ava, and somehow, that made it worse. "This time," she said softly, stepping closer, "you're going to want me as me." I couldn't answer, couldn't even lift my head. I felt paralyzed, because if I looked at her, I knew something in me would give out completely. She moved nearer. I could feel her presence just a breath away. "I'm not pretending anymore," she added, voice firmer now. I stood up too fast, chest heaving, trying to hold myself together. "You should leave," I said, but it came out unconvincing. Ava didn't flinch. She stepped in closer, eyes locked to mine. "But you don't want me to," she said quietly. Before I could respond, before I could even think, she grabbed the front of my shirt and kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't a question. Her mouth crashed into mine with heat, with urgency, something more like obsession than desire. I told myself I tried to push her off. I told myself that was my intent. But my hands didn't push. They gripped her shirt, pulled her closer like I needed her, like I'd been waiting for this. Her body pressed into mine, her breath hot against my face, her hands already finding my waist like she owned it. I broke the kiss with a gasp. "Stop, Ava." But she didn't give me space. She stayed close, close enough that I could still feel her breath on my lips, her body against mine, her eyes locked to mine like she was daring me to lie. "No," she said this time, without any softness. The calm was gone. Piece by piece, it was unraveling, replaced with something sharper, more dangerous. "You've already given me everything," she said. "Stop pretending it was just once. Stop pretending you didn't want it." I shook my head, my voice cracking. I didn't. You did, she said, her words like a blade. Her voice dropped lower, sharper. You still do. Her hand came up, resting lightly at the base of my neck. Not threatening, but firm, like she knew exactly what she was doing. My hand flew up, grabbing her wrist instinctively, like I was going to shove her away. But I didn't. I held her, because part of me needed the contact, needed something real. We crossed a line. I whispered, shame thick in every word. We can't go back. But Ava didn't even blink. We didn't cross it, she said flatly. You did the second you kissed me back. The words hit like a slap. I winced before I could stop myself. And of course, she saw it. She always saw. That smug satisfaction returned to her face, curling her lips into a smile that made my stomach twist. She stepped closer, shrinking the distance between us to nothing. The second you whispered his name, knowing it wasn't him, she added, her voice quieter, but not gentler. And that shattered something in me. Because I'd said it, David, in the dark, pretending, hoping it wouldn't count if I just believed hard enough. But Ava had heard it, felt it, and now she was using it. I looked down, unable to meet her gaze. My grip on her wrist never loosened. There were no more excuses, no more lies I could tell myself. Because she was right. I had wanted it. And in the silence between us, I realized she didn't need to convince me anymore. She already had, but I still tried. Stop, I whispered. You're my stepdaughter. She tilted her head, eyes gleaming with something that looked like victory. And that stopped you when... I turned from her, running a hand through my hair, fingers trembling. You're sick, I breathed. No, she said behind me, calm again. I'm honest. I didn't reply. Couldn't. I wanted to scream, to break something, to disappear into the walls and pretend none of it had happened. But then she said it. The one thing I hadn't let myself even consider. I don't want to pretend anymore, she said. I want to replace her. I turned slowly. My heart thudded in my chest. What? She stepped closer. You don't love him, she said. Not really. You love the routine, the comfort. But me? I see you. I know you. I know what you've been hiding. I stared at her, throat closing. He's my husband. And yet, Ava said softly, you never called her name like that before. My lungs froze. I didn't know what I was saying. Yes, you did, she replied coldly. You knew exactly what you were doing. I stumbled back, shaking my head, trying to find something, anything, to hold on to. What do you want from me? I asked. Her answer came without hesitation. Everything. Something inside me fractured. I turned away, desperate for distance, for air, but she followed like she always did. You think this ends with a little guilt and a clean break, she said. It doesn't. You already chose. You let me in your bed. You let me kiss you. You let me take what she never gave you. You're wrong, I said, voice trembling. I didn't choose this. You did, she said simply, and you'll do it again. Silence stretched between us, thick as fog, until she said it. So quiet, I almost didn't hear her. I'm not leaving. I looked at her, really looked at her, and found barely enough strength to ask, and if I ask you to? She smiled, stepping closer, so close I could feel the heat between us. You won't, because you already know what this is. What is it? I whispered, afraid of the answer. She looked me dead in the eye. The real you, the version of yourself you only show me. I could barely stand. My chest was tight, my thoughts spiraling. You can't be here, I said. You don't belong here. But she didn't back off. She stepped in until her breath hit my cheek. I do now. You made sure of that. And at that moment, it hit me. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I could never undo. Something she had planned from the start. I don't know what will happen next. I don't know if I'm strong enough to stop it, or if I'm already too far gone to try. What I do know is this. I can't unsee who she is now. And worse, I can't unsee who I became the moment I didn't stop her. So tell me, if it were you, would you walk away before it destroys everything? Or would you stay, knowing full well already has? Let me know in the comments. Because right now, I don't know what scares me more, what she wants next, or the part of me that wants it too.